Yu-Gi-Oh cards are too expensive. There, I said it. I don't know who needed to hear it, but I needed to say it. For the longest time now, I have been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I've probably been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Now for about 4 years, 3 or 4 years. And throughout that time, I've dabbled in all different kinds of decks and strategies and stuff like that. But one of the things that I have struggled the most with is getting into any kind of competitive scene. And it's so difficult to get into the competitive aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh! Simply because of the fact that the Yu-Gi-Oh cards are just so fucking expensive. I just wanted to preface this by saying I am a new Yu-Gi-Oh player. I am not good at Yu-Gi-Oh at all, the same way other Yu-Gi-Oh players that have been playing for 20 years are really good at it. But this is basically just my perspective as someone who is relatively new to Yu-Gi-Oh, especially new to competitive new Yu-Gi-Oh, and is mostly just a casual Yu-Gi-Oh player. This is my perspective. So I came across this article recently on TCGplayer.com. It's usually the place where I go to get my Yu-Gi-Oh cards and other cards of that variety. Like, I just recently started getting into Magic, so I just started picking up some Magic the Gathering cards from here. It's a great website to get cards from. It's basically the Amazon of cards, but sometimes they come out with these articles where they give you these ideas for decks and stuff like that. This is a deck that just came out today, and this is a Fiendsmith Lightsworn post-ban list related deck. As you can see, it costs over $1,000. 1,030 clams. Absolutely savage. Mr. Krabs would be shitting his pants. And you can just kind of see over here that the disparity between like what cards cost what is pretty crazy. And keep in mind, that's not even the end price for what something like this would cost. You're not even including things like shipping and handling, which would probably mean that this would ultimately end up being $2,000 or $1,500 if we were talking about that kind of stuff. But look at the disparity between some of these cards, right? You have, these cards right here, Wolf Lightsworn Beast, $1.08. But then scroll down here, you've got Punishment Dragon, $10.17. Okay, that's not terrible. Lightsworn Dragonling, $14.67. 3 of. Okay, that's starting to get a little expensive there. But then you scroll down here, boom, Fiendsmith Engraver. This is like the newest card. This is like the newest engine card. This is the newest Big Dick Energy card. $92.55. And that is a 3 of in the build. That's almost $300 for one card. For 3 cards, but you know what I mean. Scroll down here, you've got a $20 trap card. Go into the extra deck, you've got a $22 synchro, you've got a $33 synchro. And then you scroll down here, this is probably the one that's in every deck. SP Little Knight, the extra deck card, is a link card. Stop it. Is a link card that costs $62.95 for one card. That is insanity. And of course, this is including all these extra deck cards like the 3 of Triple Tactics Thrust, $43.85. A 3 of. Holy shit. And then you've got a 3 of Mulcharmy Perulia, which is basically just a hand trap card. It's max C for the TCG. And for those of you that don't know what that is, that's not a big fucking deal. That's not the point. It doesn't matter what the card does. Yes, to a degree it matters what the card does, but the card costs way too much at $54.18. Now, I was looking at this, and this is part of the reason why I think it's so hard to get into competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Because a lot of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks, really, really, really good ones that you need to have in order to play, require these really expensive cards and these really expensive builds. So on average, most of these decks are going to be over $500. If you look right here, these are the most recent decks trending this week in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Metagame. So you've got Tenpai, Fiendsmith Snake Eye, and Fiendsmith Ubel are like the two big ones. Fiendsmith, Snake Eyes, Fiendsmith Ubel. Fiendsmith Ubel just won the WCS World Championship Series. It costs $868. The Fiendsmith Snake Eye, this one costs $941. This one costs $760. Yeah, you've got some that are a lot cheaper, like this 10 pie deck at $287. But how cheap is really $287? That's still $300. Like, I could still take that amount of money and go out and buy a PS5 used right now. And I started thinking to myself, are other TCGs this expensive? So I went and I decided to look at Pokemon. So these are some of the top decks in Pokemon right now. You can already see what the fucking difference is. $168 for a Regidrago V-Star deck right here. You scroll down. Look at any of these cards. There's a 3 of for Teal Mask Ogerpon EX at $883. So far, that's the most expensive card right here at a 3 of build. The most expensive card, I think, in the entire deck is this trainer card, Prime Catcher, at $22.53. That's it. Now, if we scroll down a little bit further, if it'll fucking let me, you have a Raging Bolt EX deck, even cheaper, $121. Charizard EX, $83.21. That's just crazy. I can't believe. And this is a pretty big deck, too. Holy shit. I mean, and these are competitive decks. These are some of the top decks right now. And some of them, most of them, are costing under $100. Meanwhile, the most advanced decks, the top decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, none of them, not even the cheapest ones, are under $100. You've got ones that are almost $1,000. You've seen the first one that I pulled up here is over $1,000. So then I started looking around and I was like, well, maybe some of the other ones are as bad. Like, here's Disney's Lorcana. This one's pretty bad. And this is a new card game at $613 for a competitive deck. This is from the most recent Lorcana tournament. Here's Ruby Ramp Sapphire at $364. Card games are just way too expensive, dude. This is crazy. But here's $183. That's still cheaper than most of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks. So what is the problem, right? The problem is that you've got cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That are printed at a certain rarity, like Secret Rare, Ultra Rare, Collector's Rare, and those are the only printings of that card, meaning it's a particularly rare card. Pokemon, the reason Pokemon card decks are so inexpensive is because there exist multiple rarities of a card. A card can be printed in multiple rarities, meaning it's not that expensive. Meaning that even, good cards like, I don't know, this Gardevoir EX card, they're not that expensive because there's multiple rarities of it. I assume it works the same way. Yu-Gi-Oh! Works in the same, Lorcana works in the same vein as Yu-Gi-Oh! Just because of how expensive some of these decks are. I mean, you've got, cards here that are at like $14.46 and a 4 of in a build, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, that's just crazy to me. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically, they kind of just fuck you over and make it to where like you can't play the card game because you can't afford to play the card game. So what's the bottom line? Well, I like to think that it's that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a fun, complicated game to play, but Konami just doesn't want you to fucking play it because you can't fucking afford it unless you have mommy and daddy's money. But that's about enough bitching for me, so see ya.